At FSP Consulting, we recognize that as we go into the phases of an Oracle implementation, there's some key things that we want to focus on. We're going to talk you through our approach, how we go in, how we physically are customer focused on how we look at their operations, what are some of the key things that we look at that we want to extract and recommend back to the customer. We want to talk about what are some of the specific ERP application program level footprint that we want to ensure that we focus not only from a customer focused perspective but also from an industry best practice perspective as well. And we'll also talk through specifically as it relates to specific applications and how they intertwine or how they specifically might interrelate for one industry and be different for a different industry. At FSP Consulting, we recognize there are a lot of key factors that go into the success of an Oracle implementation. All customers are different. All customers have some different requirements. And so what we make sure that we do is understand what the customer's operational needs are, what do they do today, where are they trying to go tomorrow, how do we make things scalable for them, but more importantly, how are they organizationally structured?
All companies have parts of their business that are performing and not performing. And what we like to actually emphasize is looking at the things that companies do well and allowing them to have a competitive advantage in the industry. We don't want to lose that as we actually transform their operation into an Oracle ERP. So it's crucial on our end to make sure that we bring those successful factors that a company has that makes them competitive and make sure that we don't lose that into the actual translation going into an Oracle environment.
We always focus on what are some of the low-hanging fruit, some of the things that specifically may have lower lead time, lower cost to implement, and also have high value to the company, as well as some of the things that might be a little bit longer in lead time, have an equivalent amount of value, but there's a specific need that we've identified as we're looking at their operation, as we're looking at, where is the company looking to go? Are they going to acquire more companies? Are they going to add more business units to their existing operational structure to grow? Are there areas in the marketplace that they're trying to get into? And as they do that, how does that impact the ERP footprint that they need to roll out to those specific regions?
There are particular pieces of an organization that are not as streamlined when we look at the overall Oracle footprint in terms of integration between financial modules and manufacturing, for instance. And if there are certain aspects of a company that don't fit that flow well, we really need to emphasize going back and looking at those business processes and making sure that if there's an opportunity for change and for enhancement there, that we take full advantage of that.
We're looking at a comprehensive approach of taking a company to where they are today and ensuring that in 5 to 10 years they can continuously operate and have an understanding that the environment that they work in is not something that's going to be prohibitive to them growing. It's not going to be a constraint to their growth, but in fact a tool, something that they can ensure is a part of their success going forward. After we shift from understanding what a company's specific operational requirements are, what their needs are, where they're looking to go in the future, we'll take a step back and then start to look at what's an overall program footprint to support that particular company, obviously, and what industry are they aligned to, so that we're also following sort of a common model.
Each industry that we focus in has a certain set of requirements that it needs to satisfy customer demand. So for instance, in oil and gas, it's really more on the resource management, where you actually have employees that, based on a given project or job, may be having different labor rates based on the actual work that they're performing. So it is possible to have an existing employee within a project on multiple tasks within a work breakdown structure that is getting a different costing rate.
There are obviously, from a project-centric perspective, we're going to look at the foundation, project costing, project billing, project management, project resource management to help support a lot of the utilization, and specifically resource management around people, essentially, human capital, looking at what are some of the other complementary systems such as Primavera for resource scheduling, and to kind of overall have a broad reach in terms of how project management is delivered.
With all of these challenges, it's crucial that from a project perspective that we design the system so that we're able to account for the fluctuation in flexibility for labor costing and billing.
If we take a step up and we look at, well, what are some of the key reporting requirements, what are some of the strategies around reporting that are going to be key to the operation, to the business units that are going to be held accountable for performance, we look at project analytics as a great tool or a great way of essentially allowing a company to have good visibility into the operation from a dashboard, a C-level reporting perspective, and also give them analytical capability to adjust to things as they need to do reporting. OBIE at a higher level, which is a part of the business intelligence suite, potentially can be used in a more broader environment if companies looking at Hyperion planning from a budgeting and forecasting perspective, which typically is going to be aligned if they have large organizations, various different strategic business units, if they're operationally in various different countries, have multiple different factors that drive different parts of the company itself. It's going to be critical to look at it from a program perspective. So we got Oracle EBS, we have project analytics from a business intelligence perspective, we have Primavera, and potentially we also have Hyperion. So looking at it from a full program level perspective gives our customers a very key understanding of, here's the level of work, here's the effort that we're going to have to put into this going forward, and here are some of the things specifically that we want to make sure the organization is ready to handle and support.
On the engineering and construction side, some of the things that we see in that industry are more related on the project management piece. So Oracle Project Management is a key tool to facilitating the information gathered from the project foundation, costing and billing, and integrating that into a more of an earned value, looking at it from an internal project management perspective. Other key variables in terms of the engineering construction piece and research and development are really on the external reporting of projects to customers. So there needs to be some enhancements done, some additional configuration to support additional requirements that a customer would want for how project management is perceived.
Once we get into more details of how things operate and more functionally designing solutions specifically as it relates to how they operate, we look at this particular industry, engineering and construction, or even oil and gas, have a tendency to want to do or need to do resource sharing. So you have resources that might be potentially utilized on one particular project, and you have available resources in other organizations. So looking at cross-charging functionality to make sure that we're not only handling the requirements around physically making sure the operation is able to obviously bill customers, be able to set up projects that allow solid resource sharing across the organization, across operating units, across ledgers, in addition to managing transfer pricing requirements if we're in a global facing environment. So we look at that of all of those specific factors as we go into any particular implementation, but specifically this is our niche area that we focus in. So we take a step to ensure that we're given a proper program level reporting or program level footprint of what we're going to do, and inside that footprint there's obviously going to be some key business processes, some key decisions that need to be made that support the operation, that support the growth, and that support some of the key decisions that need to be made as they go forward as a company. So we feel very strong that as a part of the phase of initial operational requirements to developing or designing a key application program level footprint, we're ready to get into the phases obviously to physically start to build and to actually deploy and actually get the communication out to the business.
With respect to companies in the manufacturing space, there are a few questions that need to be addressed up front to ensure that you've got the correct Oracle footprint going forward. So if you start thinking about, are you truly a project-centric organization? Do you require project manufacturing? Project manufacturing allows you to essentially allocate inventory and manufacturing variances, for instance, to a given project. A lot of companies feel that that's a little bit too much in terms of a project reporting perspective. So it may or may not be beneficial, but those are some key questions that you need to ask. Another one is, are you in a contract space where a lot of your project work is driven by actual contractual obligations and contract management? If the answer to that is no, and then you start looking back at the order management space in conjunction with project manufacturing, if that fits, and try to manage your projects from that perspective, having the sales order be done, spinning up into an actual manufacturing work order that gets tied back to the actual project, and then those costs are allocated back to the project. And obviously when the product is shipped off, then we have full recognition of cost of sales back at the project level.
So we talked a little bit about using project manufacturing coupled with order management. As we said before, it's going to be typically in a more high volume and a distribution-centric type environment where you need to execute on a daily basis, high volume transactions typically, things that aren't typically going to be controlled more at a compliance level. The other sort of side of, or the other options, and typically coupling with project manufacturing, would be project contracts. So project contracts, obviously, in terms of to do contracts or order management, is typically going to be designed around what are the specific contractual or compliance requirements in terms of reporting that's going to be necessary. Also the lead time to execute. So as an example, in the defense and aerospace industry, project contracts is for the most part a must for various reasons. For the reasons of being able to make sure that we're having the contract management element of execution of actual contracts, reporting of contracts, information that's relating to producing customer-facing documentation that's surrounding government compliance. Project contracts fits that mold very well, and obviously integrating into project manufacturing in terms of downstream, managing those projects, managing those specific elements of costing as it relates to bringing in inventory, shipping out inventory, and actually building up in work in process actual by project, by inventory, or by project as well. So we've seen both sides, we work with both sides, and typically in terms of a solution will depend on what are those specific requirements as it relates downstream. As we pivot to understanding what are some of the specific operational requirements of our companies, what are the specific things that we want to make sure that we maximize in terms of recommendations and getting the most out of the system, one of the things that our customers are going to feel comfortable with is that we understand the full breadth of the system. We are, in fact, solution architects. We pride ourselves on being solution architects because we have a good feel of end-to-end how the system needs to work. And working in a global environment is very important to understand the financial side of things. What are some of the multi-currency impacts of setting up the ledgers and setting up the calendar, setting up different chart of accounts to facilitate not only the operational corporate requirements, but what needs to be done from a statutory perspective. So part of that design element, in addition to putting together the footprint for projects, as we talked about for engineering and construction, the ERP footprint for costing, for billing, for specifically as it relates to resource management, obviously project management, and potentially a Primavera solution, we also kind of look at the foundational aspect of how we go in. So looking at what is the HCM, the human capital management footprint, organizationally speaking, across the globe. So we have companies that we've worked with that they're operating in 10 different countries. So we look at what are the needs across business groups, organizationally structured, what do they need from that perspective, how does that dovetail into how we design projects, and how does it dovetail into what's the overarching financial operational reporting requirements as it relates to, again, ledgers, secondary ledgers, or reporting ledgers as well. So what we've been able to do very well because of our experience working in as many countries and spanning across various continents is we can piece together all of the specific components from end to end, and we talk really about financials, we talk about HCM. We also obviously working in a vast operational specific environment that has purchasing, so P2P, any specific relating to distribution, whether it be order management or whether it be contracts. We're comfortable with understanding all of the different process flows that allows companies to be successful, and a part of our recommendations will incorporate some of those things. So we pride ourselves, we focus on being specifically the project experts, and we're confident that we'll be able to provide a strong project operationally based solution for project-centric companies, but that's not all we can do. We have capabilities that scale beyond just projects. Again, financials, we understand the HCM side, we understand how important HR couples in with projects, and obviously you can't go anywhere without the financial aspect of putting together a sound, scalable reporting solution for especially global global companies that we work with that have a lot of multi-currency requirements. How does that impact projects? How does that impact reporting in projects? How does that affect transfer pricing, intercompany billing? There's several things that all tie into how we do that design. So FSP is definitely a company that is well versed in what are the pieces that we need to put together from a perspective of taking a company that is either has aspirations to go global or is currently global. We're going to understand what a lot of those specific needs are, what the ERP can do, what it maybe not do so well specifically, and make the recommendations so that you take the right approach, the right design, and get you where you need to be.